Welcome to the Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy, the free podcast for motivated teachers and school leaders who want to inspire their students and school community in literacy learning. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast player, and for more amazing literacy resources, check out the show notes provided with every episode.
Hi, I'm Sharon and I'm the host of A Teacher's Toolkit for Literacy. In every Toolkit episode, we bring you specific resources, tools, strategies, tips, techniques to help you in your job as a teacher of literacy. Firstly, we acknowledge and pay our respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we gather on. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present and ongoing connection to the land and cultural beliefs. And welcome, Phil.
And welcome everyone to this podcast, and welcome to Sharon.
Thank you, Phil.
Now, Sharon, what have you been up to lately?
Actually, on the day that we're actually recording this is the 1st of December. So we are now into a new season. And I always feel quite reflective at this time of year because there is in Australia, we're coming towards the end of a school year, and whilst that means wrapping up lots of things in schools, it's also a season for me where I get to do a lot of the resource creation. Not that that's not happening during the year, but actually some of our podcast listeners might not be fully aware of the resources that we often refer to in podcasts are also part of a much bigger project that we have undergo, which is Teachific, as a teacher's resource site.
Yes.
So for me, this time of year, that's what I've been up to. I'm going to say, I've been beavering away because this is a time where I can get some solid, uninterrupted, working time. And so this is the time where lots more resources are developed and created, trialled, and I guess what is also being noticed is when teachers want to achieve outcomes for their students and may not readily have access to the types of resources that allow them to get to the real depth, the real inquiry type approach to learning that really allows for transfer and use.
Yep.
We're often in conversation with teachers about, this is what I really want to be able to achieve. How can I do that? And how can I do that without having to start from scratch, looking for a resource that isn't going to work for me? And interestingly, I want to add in, a lot of teachers, a lot of us playing around with AI.
Oh, yes.
And wondering how can that help us?
Yep.
And I think there are some great ways that AI is supportive and helpful. What a lot of teachers have been telling me is, they'll type in, I'm looking for what would be a lesson, that helped me teach this, this and this with these constraints, with this aged child and whatnot. And they've actually been surprised by how many times those lessons or those ideas that come up do two things. One, it often confirms how much a teacher has got this. That this is what they've thought of, and yes, that's exactly what the AI comes up with as well. Yep. And secondly, that sometimes it comes up with things where they've gone, that's something I used to do. Why am I not doing that anymore?
Right.
So I think that's been an interesting discussion and exploration with people. I've come to a clear understanding about something in this season of writing that I've just been in.
Yep.
And that is that when I look back on resources that have been developed and created and put up on Teachific, I understand that there's two important words to be using for a start is really thinking strongly about what are the rituals and routines that we intentionally establish with our class at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
And what are those rituals and routines that sustain students in a way where they continue to have agency, be inquiring, curious, creative, explore, develop, be aware of what it is they're doing, how I'm growing as a reader, how I'm growing as a writer, what strategies I'm using that are helping me, and being able to talk about that. And
from my talks with you, that's kind of the essence of what you're doing. That's the layer right in the middle there of the routines and the rituals and how the day and week functions.
Yeah.
And then you're also doing some things that will feed into that, the scope and sequence and we won't say unit planning, we could say learning project planning, or some sort of planning that goes over weeks of time.
Yeah. And I suppose in essence, it's that I'm going to just use the term literacy unit for the sake of saying the connectedness of reading and writing strategies and the reciprocity of those, how we can plan for those things to be part of the rituals and routines of children's daily life. I have to say I am pretty excited. It's been head-hurting work, but with such an element of why it head hurts is because I feel such an enormous responsibility to teachers when I'm doing that, because I'm not trying in any way to lock anything in for anybody, but to try and capture the possibilities of what can be, and trying to make it as simple and as open-ended for teachers as possible, so that it's a guide. So I feel like I want it to be, I'm helping as a guide without being the stifler.
No, it's a springboard.
Yes.
It's a springboard. It's also, to me, it looks like you're connecting reading, writing, word work. That we talk about that in all our podcasts.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you put it into your planning, that's pretty powerful too, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And of course, it's been entirely astonishing that over this past couple of weeks, we have been catching some of the thinking and reflection of some of the teachers that we've been working with that, stand by for those, to be available. We're
also going to have something that's going to be, I think, really valuable for teachers to actually see some teachers in action through some videos we're creating, which comes out of the work that you've been doing in schools this year, which is actually, it's culmination of a few years in a particular school, and we hope that resource and the resources you're working on, all these things are going to help teachers in what they're doing, make their work richer. There's been all of this work that we've been doing, and so we thought that really to kind of wrap up this year of podcasting, whilst all of that work that is still to be finished and launched into the world, we thought we could do a little wrap up of this year by bringing together a list of what we think are some of the top essential type tools that we might want to start thinking about at this time of the year, if you're listening at the end of a school year, that you can be kind of almost checklisting against, saying, yes, for reading, what do I need? Have I got this set? Will I have that set for next year? If there's something that isn't set up, what if I... Because it's about this time teachers are finding out what classes they have. Yes. So it's probably a good time to start thinking about how you're going to set up for next year. I remember you as a teacher, you were much more organised than me, Sharon. You would, at the end of the year, you'd spend that following week getting the whole thing set up for the following year. Yeah. Yep. Oh, well, it seems so exciting, what class you're going to be working with in the next year. And if you don't know what class you're working with in the next year, we're still hoping that this list of tools Yeah, because some people find out just a week before school starts. So.
Yeah, extraordinary. And so we hope this is like a little bit of a support to going, yes, they would be things to think about, or that's something I haven't thought about before.
Yeah.
And we're not just going to give you this list of things. What we are going to do is give you the list plus
a set of steak knives.
Yes. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be fun? We could send that off to everybody, all the listeners.
I shouldn't say that because people might expect a set of steak knives. Sorry, no.
Well, actually.
Or teacher steak knives.
Or what for those of us that don't eat steak.
True.
Don't want the steak knives. What about a set of cheese knife? Anyway, not even that. Tofu knife.
The great thing is we're going to connect to podcasts and resources on Teachific.
Yes.
That will connect with what we're about to say. So that over the holidays you could check some of these things out. And it really is giving a direction, coordinating the resources of Teachific and the podcasts. To me, just looking at Teachific and the podcast, it's a massive information there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is going to provide some direction on how you can set up your classroom. What are some of the really key things to set up?
Yes.
That will really get your kids excited about reading, writing and word work.
And you as teacher being excited about rituals and routines that can be set up for that. And we hope that it's that nice way to not be overwhelmed by all the things, that the new year brings, that the new school year brings, and not to be overwhelmed by going to look for what is it that I need to be able to set that up easily and successfully.
Yep.
And
we're talking about foundation through to year 6.
Yes. And it's actually been really good for us and we've done a little bit of tidying up and neatening up of Teachific in getting ready for this podcast to really make sure that the things that we are providing through Teachific, it's real clarity about where to look, what you're going to find there, and how that can easily and quickly help you.
So you'll be well directed in how to get yourself set up. And some of these tools, we've seen children get so excited about them, haven't we, Sharon?
Yes.
And teachers.
Yes.
And, it's getting those structures in place, I think, that can really make a difference. And then you get into those routines and rituals, and then you start to bring in more into your teaching. But you've got this basic foundation of these tools and these routines and rituals that really keep and drive and almost self-drive because the children are working with you.
Motivation.
Yep. Motivation.
Agency.
Yep.
Yes, where children start to feel in charge.
Anyway, here we go.
So not necessarily in any order.
No.
Are we talking about these?
And it's not a definitive list.
No, no. But I was just thinking as you were saying that about how many of these things that we're going to be talking about came up again and again and again when we were chatting with teachers about the successes and the growth that they'd seen over a year.
Yeah.
So many of the elements that we're going to talk about were essential elements to teachers and the classroom work this year.
Yeah, because one of our big questions to them, what were the game changers that really made a difference to your teaching this year?
Yes.
I think the videos are going to be fantastic for people to just see, and it will back up what we're about to talk about.
Yes.
As you said.
And that it's with such clarity that teachers were able to talk about the things that they know made a difference. And, we see some students talking about some of their learning and discoveries too. What I think is important about this is that we can direct people to these places to find out more, because actually we've said a lot about every one of these things through podcasts and professional readings.
That's true. It's really telling them what the list is and then what the links are to Teachific and podcasts.
If people don't know about where to find the show notes, once you're in whichever platform you are in for the podcast, in that episode, if you scroll down to the bottom of all the information, where you've pressed play, down below that is where the show notes are. And that's where religiously, Phil, you are an absolute master at doing this, but you put in all of the links to everything that's mentioned in a show. And in this one, there's going to be quite a list. Some of those things will reference podcasts and they are free to everybody. Some will be links to Teachific. Resources and courses. Now, Teachific isn't free. There are some free resources on there, but if you are a Teachific member, of course, then you access every one of these resources.
Or if your school is a member, then you're a member.
Yeah.
So,
yes, yeah. But you can also access resources by just purchasing single resources.
Yes,
so you don't have to be a member, but we think it's amazing value for...
Actually, you could spend your holidays just reading the product descriptions.
Well,
wouldn't cost you a thing.
One of the teachers I work with has done exactly that. Read her way through the site and said, well, that was just incredible professional learning.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's been, I must say, well done to you, Sharon, because it's been years in the making, that site.
Well, it's been up and running for a number of years, but we're still... A lot of people are still discovering it. So I don't feel ashamed at all, as I think I did earlier on in the Teachific life, about saying there are such rich resources on there. And I'm not just saying that because it's ours. It's really teachers are showing how useful the resources are to them by the way they're using them, by adapting, really personalising for their class. But over and over again, teachers are saying, wow, this is, I can't be without.
And speaking of things we can't be without, Sharon.
Yeah, what are they?
Here's our list.
Let's go. Right.
Number 1, classroom library.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the importance of the classroom library.
And why? Access to books.
Access to books. Research. Yes, International Literacy Association.
Yep.
Leslie Mandel-Morrow, her research tells us that children who are in classrooms with classroom libraries read 50% more.
And why is that important, folks? Because the more you read, the better you get at reading.
Yeah.
Mostly just right material, though.
Yes. Yeah, but it needs a big collection.
Yeah.
But access, time to read, range of books. So for a classroom library, it not only supports independent reading and children choosing and having that opportunity to select, but also gives you a rich stock for your read alouds.
Brilliant.
All right, so there's 3 resources to classroom libraries that we're going to point you in the direction of. There will be a podcast that is linking tantalising texts with classroom libraries, so not just throw anything on the shelf and expect children to engage with it, but there's a great podcast on that, and there is a very powerful professional reading around classroom libraries and the importance of classroom libraries and how to set them up. And then also to back that up is a wonderful video of some year 6-7 students who are talking about the classroom library they have in their classroom, how they engage with it, how it's set up, how the teacher works with it. And it's an absolute joy. And
they're so articulate, aren't they?
Yes.
It's a cracker.
Yeah. So that video, free to anybody.
Yeah. It's on YouTube as well.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Number 2.
We're moving right along here, Sharon.
We are. So number 2, a reading journal. From foundation through to year 6, children need a reading journal.
And in the older grades, it can look like an A4 exercise book.
Yes.
And the younger grades, it can be a scrapbook or whatever.
Yes.
Yep.
Or the kind of lined book that you will have your students working with. But yes, foundation children might begin with unlined paper.
Yeah.
In the older grades, many teachers I know provide children with blank art diaries.
Right.
So hardcover, spiral bound.
Yep.
So what does it look like? It can be an exercise book. It can be what it is that you want to honour for. I always refer to the reading journal as a place for children to keep a record of their reading story.
Yeah.
So reading journals should contain things like reading logs or reading calendars.
Which is a record of what you're reading daily, weekly, so on.
Yes. Conferring notes, reading goals, surveys of yourself as a reader.
So it's a real picture of what you are as a reader, vital for assessment, isn't it? Like it's just
and just tracking. Like I say, it's this record of students' reading story, and it's theirs. And when we talk about reading
it's motivation
journal,
as well, isn't it?
Yeah. We're pointing you in the direction of a podcast called The Hidden Power of Reading Journals. And then we've also got on Teachific, and this has developed over many years and has been a pretty major project, and I think speaks to the value and power we see in reading journals. We've now, so on Teachific, you'll find a section called Reading Journals by Grade.
Yep.
And you can go into your grade level and you will find a number of resources that range from things like reading interview type things to reading calendar for the older students or a reading log for younger ones. Different kinds of things we can get children thinking about to respond.
Prompts.
In their reading journal. So I think we do call them prompts, and they range from author studies to poetry to fiction, non-fiction, character. Yep. So there is a whole wonderful world of things to explore about how you can, in fact, I think there's a resource of getting started with the reading journal.
All right, so we've got a podcast, we've got a resource, and number 3.
Yes, number 3, we have put down the importance of quick writes.
Oh,
free writes.
I love quick writes.
But this idea of the quick write, let's get out of that struggle of, I don't know what to, the putting the pencil to paper or the pen to paper. So the whole idea of the quick write is such a powerful tool. And for every time people would, say to me, oh, quick writes, I forget about, they are such a powerful strategy.
Yeah.
So powerful that we have a podcast called Quick Writes for Quick Results.
Yep.
We also, I think we've got 2 podcasts.
We do, yep.
Quick Writes using mentor texts.
Yep.
And then
a resource.
We've also got a whole section on Teachific. So under writing, if you look in writing, you will see as one of the
subcategory, quick writes. Yeah.
And a whole lot of...
And I might mention our nifty idea of having an A5 book, Sharon.
Actually, it's not it's smaller than an A5.
Is it? Just
cut in half horizontally.
Yeah.
To provide just a very small...
We will just say kids are really excited about that book.
Yes.
That size, aren't they? It's a winner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yep. Video with Candace. She's got the kids actually writing in their quick write book.
Yes.
And reading out from them.
Yes. And I've got some samples here. We should put some of those up.
And number 4, Sharon.
Number 4, And do you know what? When I mention number 4, I am actually going to also refer to something in the quick writes. So our students need a writer's notebook. They need a place where their writing lives. Some people will put things onto paper and have lots of loose leaf paper. It's really powerful to have it in a book and to be able to flip back and forward between things in that book. One thing I'm just going to mention, it's one of those tips that everyone says, wow, that's just changed my life, knowing that. But having whatever notebook it is, whether it's the little A5 quick write book or an A4 exercise book, and I am talking for older ones here, specifically for this strategy, is just get them right. Margins. Margins are really important.
Yep.
Because we can get things into margins that help us in our revising stage.
Yep.
But get children just writing on the right-hand page and leave the left page blank, because that gives us a place to revise, try out other things, and do the real work of the writer.
Yeah, because it's the revising and the editing that makes the big difference, doesn't
Yes,
it?
yeah.
Yep.
And they aren't things that just get left to the end of, oh, we're about to publish it. Right, now do some of that work. That's the ongoing work of the writer. Now,
but we haven't mentioned this, but publishing, we haven't listed it in there, but it's definitely comes out of that work in the writer's notebook that you are publishing often, Sharon.
yes.
Often.
Yes.
Not once a term.
No.
Could be once a week.
And so our resource
Yes.
for the writer's notebook
Oh, yes.
is an absolutely astounding resource. And I haven't created it, but Alan Wright,
Yep.
somebody who knows and has developed with teachers and students such successful approaches to the writer's notebook.
Yep.
And in the course, Writer's Notebook, is that what it's called? Writer's Notebook, I think it is.
Yep.
Alan walks you through what it is that makes the Writer's Notebook such a powerful tool, and starting off a year with just setting up that Writer's Notebook would absolutely set you up on such a great course for your students across their year.
Now, it's a beginning course, so
Yes.
there will be others, but it starts off, the title starts off, The Right Stuff,
Yeah,
and then The Writer's Notebook.
yeah.
with
So
Alan
it's a
Wright.
great beginning of year
Yeah.
piece
Yep.
to begin with,
Yep.
especially for our
All grades.
all grades.
Yep.
So
Perfect.
great insight into the Writer's Notebook, but we say, wow, there's a tool that every child should have in their
Yep.
toolkit for the year.
Number 5.
Number 5, alphabetical word walls. Now, there are word walls. I've intentionally used the word alphabetical here. So for our foundation year 1 students, alphabetical word walls are a way, so in a very accessible and visible place to our students, being able to anchor words alphabetically on that wall. Doesn't mean they have to be alphabetically sorted for every word, but that it belongs. I know where I can find it because I can search for it by the alphabet.
Yep.
So, alphabetical word walls, classrooms need a word wall. Our foundation, year 1 classes, from day 1, word walls really are a critical component of that. I know sometimes, we'll say, oh, as long as it comes later in the year, but there is nothing like having that there to begin with.
Yep.
And having that space dedicated from the beginning of the year, rather than wondering later on in the year, okay, where am I going to put it? There's not going to be a space for it. So foundations 1's a class word wall. Year 2's, to 6s, a personal word wall. And in fact, even some year 1s benefit massively from a personal word wall.
Yep.
So
on Teachific, we've got spelling as a main category, and go into that spelling, and then a subcategory, one of them is
word walls,
and the other one is personal word walls.
Yeah.
So go into either of those two.
Well, one is about the class word wall,
Yep.
and one is about personal word walls.
Yep. And we even have a course where we show how to set up a personal word wall.
Yeah.
Which is a quick video, so it's quite good.
Yeah. And that is an ongoing tool across the year. And once again, it's out of all these things that we're talking about, these are the things that keep coming up again and again that people are telling us are just the real game changers in the things that they're working with in their classrooms and their students are working with.
Yep. And we'll take a break there from part 1 of our podcast. We look forward to you joining us for part 2. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. To make sure you don't miss any literacy learning tips and insights, please subscribe to our show on your favourite podcast player. At Q Learning, our literacy specialists draw on over 30 years of teaching and international consulting experience to deliver world-class learning solutions. We equip, empower and support teachers to become their authentic selves. To find out about upcoming webinars and about how Q can help you and your school, visit qlearning.com.au. And you can get even more amazing teaching resources right now at teachific.com.au. Stay tuned.